Most people don't realize that the biggest battles they face are not happening out in the world, they're happening inside their own mind. Long before life challenges them, their thoughts, impulses, and fears have already worn them down. You don't lose because the world is too hard. You lose because your inner world is untrained, loud, and pulling you in every direction. And in a life filled with pressure, distraction, and noise, that inner weakness becomes the real enemy. Marcus Aurelius understood this over 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Everything begins there, not with circumstances, not with luck, not with motivation, with the mind. Inner strength isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. It's a practice, not a personality trait. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen it. Every time you calm your thoughts before reacting, you strengthen it. Every time you resist a distraction or quiet a fear, you strengthen it. But most people never train this part of themselves. They're pulled around by impulses they don't control, thoughts they don't question, and emotions they don't understand. They're living life with an untrained mind in a world designed to overwhelm them. Modern life makes this even harder. We live surrounded by constant noise, notifications, opinions, temptations, endless stimulation. Your attention is attacked from the moment you wake up. Your emotions are triggered by every headline, every comment, every memory. Your thoughts bounce between fear of the future and regrets of the past. Without inner mastery, you are at the mercy of all of this. You're pushed, pulled, controlled without even realizing it. That's why so many people feel lost, unfocused, anxious, or stuck. Not because they're broken, but because they've never been taught how to rule their inner world. The truth is simple. If you don't learn to master your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, and your environment, those things will master you. There is no neutrality. The mind is either trained or reactive, focused or scattered, strong or overwhelmed. And your life will always follow the state of your inner world. This guide is your path back to control, real control. Not control over the world, but control over yourself. The kind of self-control that creates confidence. The kind of discipline that builds respect. The kind of inner strength that cannot be shaken by circumstances. This is your blueprint for becoming someone you can rely on. Someone who can stand firm even when everything around them is uncertain. If you've ever felt like you're capable of more, if you've ever sensed that the real battle is happening within you, then you're in the right place. This is the beginning of mastering yourself, before the world has a chance to master you. Most people move through life convinced that their struggles come from the outside. They blame circumstances, timing, childhood, the government, their partner, their parents, their boss, their genetics, anything they can point to that exists beyond themselves. It feels easier that way. If the enemy is outside, then the responsibility is outside too. But the more honestly you look at life, the more painfully obvious it becomes. The biggest battles are never external. The real war is fought inside your own mind. You don't lose because the world is too difficult. You lose because the voice inside you convinces you to give up long before life even challenges you. The world knocks you down sometimes, yes, but your own inner resistance is what keeps you on the ground. The greatest obstacles aren't other people or bad luck. They are laziness, fear, anger, distraction, doubt, procrastination, and ego. These are the forces that quietly sabotage your life from the inside. Laziness whispers that you can do it tomorrow. Fear invents reasons to stay small. Anger clouds judgment and ruins relationships. Distraction steals the hours and days you never get back. Ego convinces you that you already know enough, that you're the victim, that change isn't necessary. These enemies aren't out there in the world. They live with you. They wake up with you. They follow you everywhere you go. And this is why ancient philosophers, placed almost all their attention on the inner world. The Stoics, the Buddhists, the Taoists, the samurai, all of them understood that a person who cannot govern themselves will be governed by everything else. External enemies are easy to see. Internal enemies are invisible, patient, and far more dangerous. If you pay attention, you'll notice that your mind is constantly producing thoughts, impulses, cravings, frustrations, and fears, most of which have nothing to do with reality. This restless, uncontrolled inner chatter is what Buddhists called the monkey mind. It jumps from thought to thought, emotion to emotion, craving to craving, never still, never satisfied. It drags your attention away from what matters and throws you into whatever feels easiest or most stimulating in the moment. 1 minute you're full of ambition, the next you're scrolling mindlessly. 1 minute you're determined to change, the next you're overwhelmed. The monkey mind is always tempting you with the path of least resistance, and if you don't learn how to quiet it, it becomes the loudest voice in your life. There's a biological reason this happens. The brain isn't designed for greatness, it's designed for survival. Growth is optional, comfort is the default. The brain wants you to do whatever requires the least effort, the least energy, the least discomfort. That's why comfort is addictive. That's why discipline feels unnatural at first. That's why emotional impulses often overpower logic. Your mind favors short-term safety over long-term purpose, and if you don't understand this, you'll spend your entire life obeying instincts that are working against your goals. The truth is that your brain isn't trying to help you thrive, it's trying to keep you calm and comfortable. But comfort is the silent enemy of progress. Comfort feels good now but costs you later. Growth feels uncomfortable now but rewards you later. Every day you wake up, you step into an internal battlefield. On one side is your intention, the part of you that wants to improve, grow, push forward, and become stronger. On the other side is impulse, the part of you that craves ease, pleasure, avoidance, and instant gratification. These two forces collide constantly. You want to work out, but your mind tells you to rest. You want to study, but your mind seeks entertainment. You want to stay calm, but anger provokes you. You want to be patient, but you react emotionally. You want a better life, but your habits push you toward the same old patterns. This is the war within, the fight between who you are and who you know you could become. And here is the core truth. Before you conquer anything in life, your career, your dreams, your relationships, your body, your finances, you must conquer yourself. If you lose the inner war, you will always lose the outer one. People who succeed aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who win the battle between impulse and intention more often than they lose. They build the discipline to act even when they don't feel like it. They learn to calm the noise inside their own minds. They choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. The real victory doesn't happen when the world applauds you. It happens in quiet, private moments when you choose the harder path simply because it's the right path. Mastering this inner war begins with honesty. You cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. Most people never do the deep work because it requires looking directly at the parts of themselves they'd rather avoid. But the moment you become aware of your inner patterns, everything starts to shift. Awareness is the gate. Awareness is the beginning of strength. Awareness is the first step toward mastery, and this is where the practice begins. Self-mastery starts with identifying the internal force that defeats you most often. You cannot fight everything at once. You must start with the main opponent. For the next 24 hours, pay attention to your patterns. Notice when you procrastinate. Notice when you get angry. Notice when you fall into distraction. Notice when fear whispers excuses. Notice when ego makes you defensive. Choose the one inner enemy that causes the most damage in your life right now, and write it down. Give it a name. Laziness, fear, anger, distraction, doubt. Once you name it, it becomes real. Once it becomes real, you can face it. Then identify the trigger. What situation activates this inner enemy the most? Does your fear appear when you think about starting something new? Does your laziness appear right when it's time to take action? Does distraction win the moment you feel slightly bored or uncomfortable? The trigger is the doorway. And once you know the doorway, you can control what happens after the moment of temptation. For the next 24 hours, simply observe this enemy every time it shows up. Don't fight it yet, don't judge yourself, just notice. You are training awareness, the first skill of mastery. When you see the enemy clearly, it loses half its power. When you recognize the pattern, you stop being controlled by it. You cannot change your life until you understand what you are truly fighting, and you are not fighting the world. You are fighting your own impulses. This is where transformation begins. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing a simple, liberating truth. Your thoughts are not you. They arise automatically, without your permission, without your control, and often without any connection to reality. The mind produces thoughts the way the heart produces beats, constantly, endlessly, involuntarily. But while you cannot control what thoughts appear, you can control which thoughts you feed and which ones you ignore. This is the essence of self-mastery. Most suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the interpretations and stories the mind attaches to them. Epictetus said it perfectly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. The world is not as painful as the lens through which you view it, and until you learn to change that lens, you will remain a slave to whatever thought happens to appear next. There is a crucial difference between saying I am thinking and I am the thought. One creates space, the other collapses your identity into whatever passes through your mind. When you say I am thinking, you acknowledge that thoughts are temporary visitors. They show up, they pass through, they disappear. When you say I am the thought, you surrender your identity to every feeling, fear, insecurity, or impulse that arises. You become anger when you feel it. You become fear when it shows up. You become doubt the moment it whispers. This merging of self and thought is the root of emotional chaos. When people say they feel lost, overwhelmed, anxious, or stuck, what they're really experiencing is identification. They're over-attached to whatever the mind throws at them. This is where cognitive distancing becomes powerful. It's the practice of creating space between stimulus and response, between thought and action, between impulse and decision. Instead of reacting instantly, you learn to observe. Instead of believing everything your mind says, you begin to question. Instead of drowning in mental noise, you rise above it. Think of it like watching clouds drift across the sky. You don't chase them, argue with them, or try to force them away. You watch them pass. Your thoughts can be treated the same way. They lose power the moment you stop identifying with them. Musashi, the undefeated samurai, understood this deeply. His entire philosophy of combat and life centered around simplicity, removing anything that was of no use. This wasn't just about belongings or techniques, it was about mental clutter, thoughts that weaken you, thoughts that distract you, thoughts that add nothing to your purpose. Musashi believed that a person who cannot ignore useless thoughts becomes vulnerable and unfocused. The sword wavers, the mind hesitates, the body reacts slowly. In everyday life, useless thoughts drain your energy and attention. Worrying about what others think, replaying conversations, imagining worst-case scenarios, overanalyzing every small thing. These thoughts don't help you, they paralyze you. Overthinking is one of the most common modern illnesses. It's the mind trying to solve problems that don't exist. It's fear disguised as analysis. It's the brain trying to stay in control by imagining every possible outcome, usually the negative ones. But overthinking never leads to clarity. It only leads to exhaustion. It turns simple decisions into mental battles. It amplifies insecurities. It magnifies mistakes. It makes the mind loud and life heavy. The truth is, The mind overthinks because it's afraid to act. Overthinking becomes a shield you hide behind, but a shield made of fear cannot protect you. It only keeps you stuck. The moment you realize you are not your thoughts, everything begins to change. You don't have to fight them, fix them, or fear them. You just have to see them for what they are. Suggestions, not commands. Thoughts lose power when you observe them instead of obeying them. When you create space, you gain control. When you stop reacting, you start choosing. And choice is the foundation of freedom. This is the first real step toward inner mastery, not eliminating thoughts, but separating who you are from the noise your mind produces. This separation also helps you understand that your mind often lies to you. It exaggerates danger, it predicts failure, it obsesses over the past, it invents imaginary judgments, it clings to comfort and resists anything that feels challenging. When you blindly believe your thoughts, you let fear make decisions for you. When you observe your thoughts with distance, you decide which ones deserve attention. You become the master, not the servant. Inner strength is not a quiet mind. It's the ability to remain grounded even when the mind is loud. Cognitive distancing allows you to respond to life with clarity rather than panic. Between what happens and how you react, there is always a brief space, and that space is where strength lives. Most people react instantly out of emotion. They get angry and immediately lash out. They feel insecure and immediately hide. They feel fear and immediately quit. Cognitive distancing gives you the power to pause, to see clearly, and to choose your response consciously. This skill changes everything: your relationships, your discipline, your emotional balance, your decision-making, your confidence. Once you master this, you cannot be easily manipulated by circumstances, by emotions, or by other people. The more you practice distancing, the quieter the mind becomes. Not because fewer thoughts appear, but because fewer thoughts matter. You learn that many thoughts are simply noise, habitual reactions, old beliefs, fears that don't belong to you anymore. And once you stop feeding them with attention, they fade. Presence increases, clarity grows, focus sharpens. You begin to act from intention rather than impulse. And slowly, thought by thought, reaction by reaction, you reclaim your inner world. Mastering your thoughts isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to be calm. It's about understanding the nature of the mind and refusing to let it control your life. The mind is a tool, powerful, creative, intelligent, but dangerous when left untrained. A sword is useful in the hands of a skilled warrior, but deadly when it swings on its own. The goal is to hold the sword firmly, not let it swing you. Now it's time to practice. The 3-second pause. The next time a thought appears, especially a stressful, impulsive, or negative one, pause for just 3 seconds. This tiny break rewires your brain. Step 1. Pause. Don't react, don't move, don't follow the impulse, just stop. Step 2. Breathe once, slowly. The breath interrupts the automatic emotional response. It grounds you back into the body. Step 3. Ask yourself, is this useful? Is this thought something that helps you? Does it guide you toward your goals? Does it make you wiser, calmer, stronger? If the answer is no, let it go. Redirect your attention to what actually matters. This simple practice builds the muscle of awareness. It teaches your brain that you, not the thought, are in control. It gives you a moment to choose intention over impulse. Over days and weeks, the pause becomes automatic. The noise fades, your reactions slow down, you gain clarity, you gain power. Repeat it throughout the day. Every negative thought, every temptation, every moment of stress. Let the pause become your anchor in the storm. Let it create space between who you are and what your mind produces. In that space, you will find the beginning of real freedom and the foundation of mastering yourself. Emotions are powerful forces, but most people never learn how to work with them. They only learn how to be pushed around by them. An emotion is simply an impulse, a temporary wave of energy in the body, yet it becomes destructive when you allow it to dictate your behavior. Feeling anger is normal. Acting out of anger is where the damage begins. Feeling fear is natural. Letting fear decide your choices is where life becomes small. Feeling anxiety is human. Giving anxiety control over your future is where clarity disappears. Emotions are not the problem. The problem is what happens when an emotion becomes the master and you become the follower. And until you understand this, you will always feel like life is bigger than you, when in reality, it's only your reactions that control you. Ancient philosophers knew that emotions were the greatest threat to inner peace. Seneca wrote extensively about anger, calling it the most destructive emotion because it blinds judgment faster than any external enemy. To him, anger was a form of temporary madness, a fire that burns everything in its path, including the person who carries it. No rational decision has ever been made in a moment of intense anger, and yet so many people live in that state daily. Fear too distorts reality. It can turn small concerns into catastrophic predictions, making you avoid opportunities that could change your life. Anxiety clouds perception, making simple situations feel overwhelming and uncertain. These emotions do not reflect truth. They reflect the amplification of the mind in moments when clarity is lost. The samurais understood this better than anyone. They trained emotional neutrality not because they lacked feelings, but because they recognized that emotional reactions weaken judgment. In battle, reacting out of anger could get you killed. Reacting out of fear could freeze you. Reacting out of frustration could make you reckless. For a samurai, emotional neutrality was a survival skill, but outside of battle, the same principle applies. Emotional overreaction leads to poor decisions, broken relationships, unnecessary arguments, and missed opportunities. When emotions rule you, your life becomes chaotic. When you rule your emotions, your life becomes steady, even under pressure. One of the most important psychological truths is the 90-second rule. When an emotion rises, anger, fear, sadness, it triggers a biochemical reaction in the body that lasts about 90 seconds unless you feed it with thoughts. After those 90 seconds, the emotional energy naturally fades. But most people keep the emotion alive by feeding it stories. What if I fail? Why does this always happen to me? These stories reignite the emotional cycle over and over until the feeling becomes overwhelming. If you stop feeding the emotion with thoughts, you allow the body's natural emotional wave to rise and fall on its own. That's emotional mastery, not suppressing feelings but allowing them to pass without letting them control you. Emotional maturity is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to observe without panicking. It's the skill of responding without reacting. It's the power to stay centered even when your inner world is shaking. When you're emotionally mature, you don't explode when you're angry, and you don't collapse when you're afraid. You feel the emotion fully, but you don't obey it. You don't let it dictate your words, your tone, your choices, or your identity. You become a witness to your emotional storms instead of letting them tear you apart. This is what allows you to keep your dignity during conflict, keep your clarity during uncertainty, and keep your direction during fear. Mastering your emotions also means understanding that feelings are not instructions, they're signals. Anger signals a boundary, fear signals uncertainty, anxiety signals imbalance, sadness signals loss. But none of these emotions tell you what to do. They only tell you what you need to pay attention to. When you mistake a signal for a command, you lose control. When you treat emotions as information, not orders, you gain power. A person who can stay calm under pressure becomes someone others rely on. A person who can remain steady during chaos becomes a leader. A person who doesn't react impulsively cannot be easily manipulated. Emotional control is not a luxury, it's a form of self-defense in a world filled with noise, conflict, and stress. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel them. Suppression is just as dangerous as overreaction. When you suppress emotions, they don't disappear. They build up, grow stronger, and eventually leak out in destructive ways. Mastery isn't about hiding, it's about handling. It's about allowing the emotion to exist without letting it take over your voice or your behavior. The strongest people aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who feel deeply, but remain composed. They're the ones who refuse to be controlled by the temporary storms inside them. Imagine how different your life could be if you didn't act out of anger, if fear didn't immediately shut you down, if anxiety didn't dictate your choices, if frustration didn't sabotage your day. Emotional mastery isn't about making life easier, it's about making yourself stronger. When you stay calm, your mind works better. When you stay centered, your decisions improve. When you resist reacting impulsively, you become someone who others trust, and more importantly, someone who you trust. Inner trust is the core of confidence. It's the quiet knowing that you won't betray yourself under pressure. Every emotional outburst is a moment where you give up your power. Every moment of emotional clarity is a moment where you take it back. And that power grows every time you practice emotional stillness. Now let's turn this into a practical method. Name, don't negotiate. When a strong emotion rises, a burst of anger, a wave of fear, a spike of anxiety, or a rush of sadness, your job is not to fight it or suppress it. Your job is to name it. The act of naming creates distance. It switches your brain from emotional mode to observational mode. Instead of "I am angry," you say "This is anger." Instead of "I am afraid," you say "This is fear." This shift changes everything. You are no longer inside the emotion, you are observing it from the outside. Once you name the emotion, allow yourself to feel it for 90 seconds without adding thoughts. Don't justify it, don't explain it, don't replay the situation, don't imagine consequences, just feel the raw sensation in your body. This may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is the purest form of emotional courage. You are not running from the emotion, and you are not letting it run you. You are simply letting the emotional wave rise and fall naturally. During those 90 seconds, take no action, no messages, no replies, no decisions, no reactions. Your only responsibility is to breathe slowly, stay present, and let the body process the emotional energy. Most emotional regret comes from actions made during those first few moments. When you resist acting immediately, you prevent 90% of emotional damage before it happens. After 90 seconds, the emotion weakens, you gain clarity, and from clarity you choose your response, not your reaction. Practice this every day, with anger, with fear, with anxiety, with sadness, with frustration. The more you practice naming and observing, the less power these emotions have over you. You begin to realize that emotions come and go, but you remain. The storm passes and you are still standing, not shaken, not broken, not controlled. This is emotional mastery. This is inner strength. And this is how you become someone who rules the fire within instead of being consumed by it. Most people spend their lives waiting for motivation to strike, convinced that discipline is some mysterious force that certain people are born with. They imagine discipline as a feeling, something that should rise inside them like inspiration, something that should make hard tasks feel easy. But discipline has nothing to do with motivation. Discipline is consistency. It's showing up when you don't feel like it. It's choosing the action that strengthens you over the action that comforts you. Motivation is unpredictable, emotional, unstable. Discipline is steady, reliable, and indifferent to how you feel in the moment. If you rely on motivation, you'll only act on your best days. If you rely on discipline, you'll act even on your worst ones. And the person who acts on their worst days will always outrun the person who only acts on their best. Aristotle captured this truth in one of the most important lines ever written. We are what we repeatedly do. Not what we wish for, not what we talk about, not what we plan. Who you are is revealed by your daily actions. What you do consistently becomes your identity. A disciplined person is not someone who feels disciplined. They are someone who repeatedly behaves in a disciplined way. This is why small daily actions matter more than rare big efforts. Every single choice reinforces a version of yourself. Every morning you wake up early, you vote for the identity of a disciplined person. Every time you choose to exercise instead of procrastinate, you vote for a stronger self. Every time you honor your word, even when it's uncomfortable, you vote for a trustworthy identity. You don't become disciplined through inspiration, you become disciplined through repetition. This is the foundation of identity-based change. Most people try to change their lives by focusing on goals. I want to lose weight. I want to save money. I want to be more productive. But goals don't create identity. Identity creates behavior, and behavior achieves goals. When you shift your focus from what you want to do to who you want to become, everything gets easier. Instead of saying, I want to read more, you tell yourself, I am the kind of person who reads. Instead of saying, I want to be healthier, you say, I am the kind of person who takes care of my body. The actions that follow this identity become natural because they align with who you believe you are. This is where Kaizen, the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement, becomes powerful. Kaizen teaches that massive change comes from tiny daily progress. Improvement doesn't happen through grand gestures, it happens through small, consistent adjustments. The human mind resists big changes because they feel overwhelming, but it accepts small ones easily. If you commit to improving just 1% each day, the compound effect over weeks, months, and years is extraordinary. Tiny habits don't feel significant, but they shape your identity quietly, steadily, and permanently. And once identity shifts, behavior follows without resistance. People often underestimate the power of simple habits because they crave dramatic transformation. But life is not changed by intensity, it's changed by consistency. A single workout doesn't make you fit, but working out consistently transforms your body. One day of reading doesn't make you wise, but reading daily transforms your mind. Showing discipline once doesn't make you strong, but showing discipline repeatedly becomes who you are. Simple habits done consistently are the bricks that build an unshakable identity, and an unshakable identity is what allows you to handle adversity, pressure, and uncertainty without falling apart. The greatest benefit of consistent action is not the result. It's the confidence you build from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say, I will do this, and then you actually do it, you strengthen a fundamental belief. I can trust myself. Most people struggle not because they're incapable, but because they've broken their self-trust repeatedly. They make promises they don't keep. They set goals they abandon. They make plans they don't follow. Over time, they start to see themselves as unreliable, weak, or inconsistent. But the moment you begin honoring even the smallest commitments, you rebuild trust with yourself. And when you trust yourself, you feel capable of anything. Inner confidence doesn't come from achievements. It comes from consistency. It comes from knowing that when the moment of pressure comes, you won't betray yourself. This is why small habits matter so much. They build a track record of personal integrity. They make you someone who follows through, someone who respects their own word, someone who can rely on themselves even when things get difficult. And when you know you can rely on yourself, life becomes far less intimidating. There is also something deeply grounding about having daily habits that anchor your life. Routines create stability in a world that constantly tries to pull you off course. They reduce decision fatigue, making it easier to stay focused. They create momentum, making hard tasks feel easier over time. And they free your mind from the chaos of indecision. When you build habits intentionally, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop overthinking, you stop relying on unstable emotions. Instead, you follow systems that carry you forward. Systems don't get tired, systems don't doubt, systems don't lose motivation. They simply work. Think of your habits as the invisible architecture of your life. You don't notice them when they're aligned, but you feel them deeply when they're not. Good habits pull you toward growth. Bad habits anchor you to weakness. When you take control of your daily actions, you take control of your future. The person who masters their habits masters their destiny. But developing strong habits doesn't mean you need to change everything at once. In fact, changing too much too quickly almost guarantees failure. The mind rebels against drastic change. The body struggles to adapt. Your identity feels threatened. This is why most people start strong and quit within days. The secret is not to aim for perfection. The secret is to build consistency so small and simple that failure becomes almost impossible. And that's where the next exercise comes in. Practical practice, the one non-negotiable habit. Choose one tiny habit that you will commit to every single day for the next 30 days. This habit must be so small that you cannot come up with a real excuse to avoid it. Something simple, something manageable, something that reinforces the identity you're trying to build. Reading 1 page, writing for 2 minutes, doing 10 push-ups, drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, 1 minute of stretching, 1 minute of meditation, tidying your desk for 60 seconds. The point is not effort, it's consistency. This habit becomes the foundation upon which your identity shifts. For the next 30 days, this habit is your promise to yourself. No matter how tired you are, how busy you become, how emotional you feel, how chaotic life gets, this habit is non-negotiable. By doing something small every day, you are creating 3 powerful changes. 1. You build the identity of a disciplined person. Even small discipline is discipline. 2. You rebuild trust with yourself. You prove that you follow through. 3. You create momentum. Small actions lead to bigger actions naturally. Don't underestimate this. A tiny habit done daily will change you more than a massive habit done once in a while. The goal is not perfection. The goal is transformation through repetition. Let this one small habit become your anchor. Let it become the proof that you're capable of consistency. Let it be the first victory in the lifelong process of mastering your actions, and in mastering your actions, you master your identity. When your identity changes, your entire life changes with it. Most people believe discipline comes entirely from willpower, but the truth is far simpler. Your environment shapes your behavior far more than your intention ever will. You could have the strongest goals, the deepest desire for change, and the clearest vision for your future. But if your environment is filled with temptations, noise, and distractions, your discipline will collapse. Not because you're weak, but because the environment is stronger than your willpower. You can't win a battle you're forced to fight every minute of every day. At some point, the environment wears you down, not because you lack strength, but because your surroundings are designed to break your focus, drain your attention, and pull you off track. When you understand this, you realize that self-mastery isn't just about managing what happens inside you, it's also about managing what happens around you. Seneca wrote that life is long if you know how to use it, and part of using your life well is learning how to reduce unnecessary noise. He believed that simplicity was not a luxury, but a necessity for clarity. A cluttered environment creates a cluttered mind. Noise creates tension. Too many choices create decision fatigue. The more chaos around you, the more chaos you feel within you, and this chaos silently erodes your discipline. Think about how difficult it is to focus in a messy room, or how quickly you reach for your phone when it's within arm's reach, or how easy it is to get distracted when your workspace is filled with stimulation. Most people think they have an attention problem when they really have an environment problem. This is why the samurais and monks of the ancient world trained in environments that were carefully designed for stillness, discipline, and clarity. A samurai's dojo was minimalist, almost empty, because every object had meaning and purpose. There was nothing extra, nothing that distracted, nothing that pulled attention away from the training. Monks lived in monasteries with simple rooms and quiet surroundings because they understood that controlling the mind begins with controlling the environment. These ancient warriors weren't avoiding the world. They were mastering themselves so they could re-enter the world with clarity and strength. They created conditions that made discipline easier, not harder. They knew that when the environment supports your goals, you don't have to fight your surroundings, you can use them. In modern life, the problem is the opposite. Instead of designing our environment intentionally, we exist in an environment that overwhelms us. Digital noise is everywhere, notifications pop up constantly, messages demand attention, apps are engineered to hijack your brain, entertainment is endless, advertisements chase you, your phone becomes a pocket-sized casino, always tempting you with instant gratification. None of this is accidental. It is designed to steal attention because attention is the most profitable resource in the world. The more distracted you are, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to influence. You can't expect to be disciplined in an environment that is designed to break discipline. In many ways, digital overstimulation is the greatest enemy of modern self-mastery. It breaks focus, weakens attention span, destroys patience, and makes discomfort feel unbearable. It rewires your brain to crave instant gratification, which makes long-term effort feel impossible. And yet people blame themselves for lacking discipline, not realizing they are living inside an environment engineered to defeat discipline. You can't outrun an environment that constantly attacks your mind. The only solution is to reshape it. This is where the principle of reducing friction becomes incredibly powerful. Fewer obstacles lead to fewer excuses. Fewer temptations lead to fewer setbacks. When you remove friction from your environment, you remove weakness from your behavior. For example, if your phone is next to your bed, you will reach for it. If junk food is in your house, you will eat it. If social media apps are on your home screen, you will open them. If your desk is messy, you will procrastinate. None of this is about character, it's about design. Your environment nudges you in small ways that become big patterns, and if you don't consciously design your environment, it will design you. The goal is not to eliminate every comfort in your life or to live like a monk. The goal is to create an environment where strength becomes the default behavior, not the rare exception. A space where focus feels natural, a routine where discipline doesn't feel like a battle, a home that supports clarity, calmness, and consistency. A digital world that works for you, not against you. When your environment supports your goals, every action becomes easier. You don't have to fight against temptation because it's not in front of you. You don't have to resist distraction because you've removed the triggers. You don't have to force discipline because your surroundings reinforce it. Imagine waking up in a clean room without your phone within reach. Imagine sitting at a desk with nothing on it except what you need to work. Imagine opening your laptop and seeing no distracting tabs, no notifications, and no digital chaos waiting for you. Imagine going through your day without constant beeps, buzzes, or reminders pulling you away from what matters. Suddenly, discipline doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like a natural consequence of your environment. This is the power of intentional design. It's quiet, subtle, but transformative. It's easy to underestimate how much your environment shapes your identity, but think of it this way. If you live in a chaotic environment, chaos becomes familiar. If you live in a calm environment, calm becomes familiar. If you surround yourself with distractions, distraction becomes your normal state. If you surround yourself with simplicity, simplicity becomes who you are. Your environment trains you whether you want it to or not. And when you choose your environment carefully, you reclaim control of your mind, your habits, and your life. The truth is simple. You cannot build a strong inner world in a weak outer world. You cannot develop mental clarity in an environment of noise. You cannot build discipline in a space filled with tempting shortcuts. You cannot grow into your best self in a place designed for distraction. The external world and the internal world are connected. Strength is not just something you practice, it is something you design. And the more intentional you are with your environment, the less willpower you will need to live the life you want. Now it's time to put this into practice. Subtract 3 things. Within the next 24 hours, remove 3 things from your environment that weaken your discipline or drain your focus. These should be small but meaningful steps that instantly make your life quieter, cleaner, and more aligned with who you want to become. Choose from things like delete 1 app that consumes too much of your time. Remove junk food from your home so you don't have to battle temptation. Clean your desk or work area. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Put your phone in another room while you work. Unfollow accounts that distract your mind or pull you into comparison. Remove clutter from your bedroom so you wake up to clarity, not chaos. These aren't dramatic changes, but they create immediate impact. By removing just 3 sources of friction, you create space for better habits, clearer thinking, and deeper focus. You begin to experience how different life feels when the environment is working for you instead of against you. Each item you subtract is a vote for a stronger, cleaner, sharper version of yourself. Do this once and you'll feel relief. Do this weekly and you'll feel transformation. Do this continuously and you will build an environment where self-mastery becomes natural, not forced, not exhausting, but the normal way of living. Control your environment, or your environment will control you. This is one of the most overlooked truths of inner strength, but once you understand it, you unlock a level of discipline that feels almost effortless. Mastering yourself is not a one-time achievement. It's a lifelong practice, one built in the small, quiet moments that no one else sees. The truth you've heard throughout this guide is simple but powerful. If you don't master yourself, the world will do it for you. Life, society, emotions, impulses, distractions, they all rush in to take control the moment you stop paying attention. But the opposite is also true. The moment you choose awareness over autopilot, the moment you choose intention over impulse, the moment you choose discipline over distraction, you begin shaping your life from the inside out. Self-mastery doesn't happen in a dramatic moment of transformation. It happens slowly, consistently, through little choices that build into something unshakable. It happens when you pause before reacting, when you calm your mind before it spirals, when you refuse to let emotions make decisions for you, when you follow through on your habits even on days you don't feel like it, when you design an environment that supports your strength instead of feeding your weaknesses. These choices might seem small, but they accumulate. They shape your identity. They create a life rooted in stability, clarity, and purpose. The 5 pillars you've learned, mastering your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your environment, and the inner war that runs through them all, are not theories. They are tools, real tools you can apply today. Tools that anyone, no matter their past or their struggles, can use to build inner strength. Thoughts become clearer when you stop believing every idea your mind throws at you. Emotions become manageable when you learn to observe them instead of obey them. Actions become powerful when they are consistent and aligned with your identity. The environment becomes a source of support rather than sabotage when you design it intentionally. When all these pillars work together, you become someone life cannot easily shake. If you ever feel lost again, if you ever feel weak, distracted, or overwhelmed, return to this video. Let it recenter you. Let it remind you of who you're trying to become. Let it remind you that strength is built in everyday moments, not in rare flashes of motivation. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, aware, and willing to take the next step. So hear this clearly. Save this video. Come back to it whenever you feel weak. And remember, a person who can rule themselves can never be ruled by anything else. You can do this. You can build inner strength. You can change the direction of your life. And it all begins with mastering yourself.